Hello everybody, it's Captain Max of Fun with Guns. And I thought I would talk today about the gun culture. Now, I was asked a while back by somebody who had no real opinion on guns about the gun culture, why I enjoyed shooting and things like that. And I realized I had an opportunity to help explain to someone who had no agenda, it was not a trick question, I was not being baited, about why guns and the gun culture are so important to me and help to prevent any misunderstandings about what the gun culture is. I made a few notes, and one of the things that came to mind was that we tend to speak of the gun culture in the singular, but in reality, the gun culture is not a single culture. There are several different ones. The way I see it, it breaks down into three basic groups. You have the professional gun culture, the recreational gun culture, and the defensive gun culture. Now, professionals, police, military, bodyguards, even federal flight deck officers, and people who carry a gun as a tool as part of their trade have an approach to guns that's normally one of, it's just a piece of equipment. A policeman often sees his gun the same way he sees his patrol car or his handcuffs. It's a piece of his kit that he has to be proficient with. Now, I was a police officer, and I know that many police officers are not really trained with any firearms other than the ones they're issued. There are some police officers who are part of the gun culture and are into shooting recreationally or as a hobby, and these people tend to be fairly proficient or at least knowledgeable of a wide variety of firearms. But don't assume that just because someone carries a gun for a living that they know anything about guns beyond the type that they've personally been trained on to use in their line of work. As for the recreational shooters, people who enjoy things such as hunting, target shooting, cowboy action, practical shooting competition, skeet shooting, all of these types of things, for them, the gun culture represents something that is entertainment, and that's fine. In fact, that accounts for a great many of the sales of guns in this country. Recreational shooting in all of its forms, whether it be hunting or sporting clays, is an excellent form of entertainment, an excellent activity, and conceivably, if times were to get hard enough, it could be a practical skill to have. But it is also a very benign hobby. People who enjoy the shooting sports are just like anybody else. Some people it's cars, some people it's stamps, some people it's old movies, some people like to go shooting. There's nothing sinister about it. They're not compensating for anything. They're just folks that enjoy the shooting sports. It really is just that simple. Now, when you get into the last part of the gun culture, the people who carry firearms for defense or own firearms for defense, well, this is a group that probably catches more flack as civilians than any other. People ask questions like, why do you need a gun? Are you expecting trouble? Well, no, if I was expecting trouble, I would have stayed home. None of us can see into the future, and there are those of us who believe in being prepared. It's just that simple. There's nothing dark or sinister about it. We just don't want to get caught in a situation where we can't protect ourselves or our family. Defending yourself, defending your family, is not just a right, it's a moral imperative. Now, many people, probably most people by a reasonably wide margin, even in the United States, go through life pretty much unarmed. And if they decide that that's how they want to face the world, that is absolutely their right, and I do not stand critical of their decision. But for those who do wish to be prepared for a worst case scenario, I would expect the same in return. Some people enjoy guns simply because of the historic precedents. Most of the guns I own are in excess of 50 years old. I like old firearms. I find them intriguing. I like collecting them. I like shooting them. Now, we all know that the United States was founded by people that had an axe in one hand and a rifle in the other. So yes, the gun is part of American culture. Without it, this country never would have been settled. It became part of the national psyche for many people. Now, in the past 100 years or so, as things have greatly modernized, we haven't needed guns for putting meat on the table, except for a few people out there who still subsistence hunt. However, unfortunately, more people than any of us like to think about have had to use guns for personal defense. So even though we have readily available police in most parts of the country, it's like that old saying, when seconds matter, the police are only minutes away. I know that sounds a bit trite, sounds like bumper sticker logic, but it still holds true. The simple fact is that in the end, none of us can abrogate our moral imperative to defend ourselves and our families. So as far as keeping guns for personal defense goes, of course, it is a personal choice, and I do not criticize anyone for how they choose to face the world. But just remember that the choice you make is the choice you're going to have to live with. To own a gun is to take on a great responsibility. And if there's anything I would like to see that we don't currently have, would be more respect taught for firearms. So in the final analysis, the gun culture is no different than the car culture, or the aviation culture, or the motorcycle culture, or the old movie culture. They're people who choose to exercise a right in one of the only countries that has made gun ownership a right. There's nothing sinister about it. You should not judge people for it, just as we do not judge people who choose not to own a gun. I guess all I'm trying to say in the end is don't try to read things into it that aren't there. We're not looking for trouble. In fact, quite the contrary. We very much don't want trouble. I'm Max with Fun with Guns. Thanks for watching, and as always, please be safe.